Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. As I was working in this book this morning, filling in some of the pages, I was watching some videos that I'm behind on. And one of the videos I watched was Sue at Paper Inspirations. And she had, in the journal that she was sharing, she had included one of these 4-pocket little booklets. And when I saw it, I thought, aha, that's right. You can use those or make those with a single sheet of digital paper, 8.5 by 11 digital paper, because it's kind of a one-sided project. And it reminded me, one, that I haven't made them in a while, and two, it's a great way to use some of those. And then I thought, well, me being me, I wanted to include a little notebook to write in this, because on the back side you can put photos, of course, but I wanted to be able to include one of these in the journal with options. So you can either glue it down into the journal or you can put it into a pocket so that it's loose. And there are 4 pockets on the inside if you fold it this way, but then when you fold it back, I included the little notebook. And I normally sew these things straight in, and there would be a seam right here, either a 5-hole pamphlet stitch or a sewing line where I sewed it in, and I didn't want it to show because of the way the book looks. So I created a workaround with it, and I wanted to share that with you. This will be a super quick video, and I don't know the first person who created this, but we've all seen them a whole lot. And I just wanted to say thank you to Sue for reminding me that this is a super way to use 8.5 by 11 paper. All right, so when you're making this, you can certainly use double-sided paper, and that'll make your life a little bit easier in some regards. But at the same time, the idea, this gets pretty bulky pretty quick. So thin paper, single-sided, this is simple, cheap copy paper, works really well. And this particular project, because of the way you're folding it, it works much better if you have non-directional paper. So like if I were just to use this gingham pattern, or something like Tracy has with her compendium kits, where it goes in random images. When you're getting ready to fold it, you're going to lay this out in front of you, landscape, right? And whichever side you want to be at the top of your pockets, that's the side. So if you're looking at your image right in front of you, you want it to look like you're going to want it to be in the booklet, if that makes sense. So if you want your images to go a certain way, this right down here, this bottom section, roughly 2 inches, is going to be the section that shows at the top. So if you want that to go in the right direction, if you've got directional paper, you want it to be facing you or looking at it correctly. And then I just flip it over. And then what I do, it is personal preference. You certainly don't have to. You can score it if you want to, but I just kind of eyeball it. And when I'm doing this, I often tape it down simply because it wiggles when I'm folding. But this section that I'm folding, that's going to be this top piece, it's about 2 inches. So I'll pick up the edges, and when I'm looking at my paper, I just want to fold it about 2 inches. Again, you can score it, but it's really not necessary. If you line up your edges, it should be pretty straight. All right, so I'm going to fold that down. And at this point, I would probably glue this. I'll put my glue stick down and glue that. And then I'll lift it up and turn it around. And you can see this is going to be the top, this section right here where the pockets show, the top of the pockets show. So I've now got it going in the direction that I want. Now, because of the way this particular paper, now it doesn't do it with every paper, of course, but the way this particular paper works, in order to do that, to have the print going correctly inside the booklet, I had to, the back is totally fine, but on the front, I had to have it upside down, which doesn't bother me in the least because of what I intend to do with the front. So I've got a large bird cluster that I can put on it if I choose to, and then the upside down print doesn't really show. It's not an issue. Or I could use a different bird cluster if I wanted something more colorful, right? And again, the upside down print doesn't show. Or if it really bugged me, I've got this little piece of net, lace net kind of stuff, and I'd glue that on, right? And just more paper, and I could glue that right on top. It's just another scrap of thin paper, and I'll glue that on top. And these are one of those button spots, right? And then because this is a bird theme book, maybe I'd put the bird here. And so again, the front page doesn't have to show. So if I have to choose one to be upside down, this one would be a good one to be upside down. So I have folded it here, and then I've glued it. And then I'm going to take the bottom section. Now you have a choice. You can just pull this up and fold it and call it good. You want it to go over your halfway mark or over your bottom lip because you don't want that white to show. But I find that this is really thin, and if I'm going to be taking a tag or a booklet or a fold over or something in and out, I like to make this just a little bit sturdier. And the way I do that is, again, you're welcome to score it if you have a scoreboard and you like to score, but you don't have to. You just roll up about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm guessing maybe that's a quarter, between a quarter and 1/8. And you just do that all the way along. It should work pretty closely. And if it's not perfect, it's not a big deal because it's not going to show. It's going to be the inside edges of your pockets. So I just kind of do that all the way along, and I push down so you can see there. And then I'll put a little line of glue right along here, and that just gives me a little bit sturdier edge for my pocket. And then I pull, so this is the top of my pocket, I pull this up, and wherever I want it to land, I fold it down like that, just like that. So I've been working hot dog, hot dog, hot dog to fold it in, right? Glued it down, glue this edge. I would ink it here and then glued down, all right? And then that's the basis of my booklet. Now I've got one that's already done. I've already glued this down and run it through my laminator, and I already glued this edge down and inked it so that you don't have to watch that. Got it here, and my pockets are all set, right? When I fold this, I'll have all the pockets. The part that you folded up for your pocket will go on the bottom, will go face down. And then you take the bottom edge and the top edge, hamburger, if you're a hamburger hot dog kind of a person, and you match up your edges. All right, so you're going to match up your edges. The pockets are going to look like they're on the outside, right? So if once I pick it up, I've got my big pocket and I've got my big pocket, right? And I would use the bone folder here just because you're getting more thicknesses of paper. Then you're going to take one edge and fold it to the middle, and you want it to go just, I don't want to say past the middle, but you definitely want it to touch that middle crease. You definitely want it to hit there. And then, so this is the front, and then I open it up, and here's the back. And I'm going to do the same thing with the back. I want to take the bottom edge and fold it to the middle, and I definitely want it to touch. And I'm going to crease that down. And that is your booklet. Now, you have a choice when we glue this down. I'll show you the two that I've got. This one here, when I glued my sides down, I put a little bit of glue in the center, in that center seam where the crease is, so that my pockets, this is a pocket, this is a pocket. There's 4 distinct separate pockets. In the other book, this one here, you can see I didn't glue it. It's wider, so there's a little bit more room for bulk if you want something bulkier. I actually prefer it glued, but here I didn't, on this one I didn't fold the edge over, I just put lace, and it really added quite a bit of bulk, which is fine. I don't mind bulk in the least. But if you don't want that much bulk, it just defines the pockets a little more. So if you're putting in, things like tags, like I've got here, they don't run together and fall out of their space. So I am going to glue down the sides. So my piece that's making the pockets, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right along the edge, and then right here in the seam or the crease. And I'm going to do that all the way across. The outer edges probably need to be a little bit sturdier or a little bit more glue, simply because they'll get more use, I suppose. And then fold it down. Somebody asked me, I got a message today about why I've gone back to art glitter glue and as opposed to Barely There or reptile glue, only because I'm babysitting my my granddogs, the Bernese Mountain Dogs, and they got a hold of the bottle and chewed it up. Mo, one of the dogs, thought it was glue was candy or something, and he ate it. So that's the only reason. They're all good glues and they all work just fine. All right, and that is my 4-pocket folio, and then I would ink everything, and I'm good to go. So the pocket section is done. Now I'm going to put in the booklet in the back, and this is the part that's just a little bit different maybe. And certainly you can just leave your booklet like this if you want, and not put the paper, the note paper in the back to make it a notebook. But the way I did it is this. Again, I didn't want, normally I would sew with either a pamphlet stitch or a machine stitch right down the center. I do that quite a bit, but I didn't want the stitches to show on here because of the way the profile of the book. So what I did to combat that is I cut my stationery in advance to the right size. This is roughly 3 3/4 by 5, and so I want it to fit in here with just a little bit of room all the way around, because it displaces when you fold it and you don't want it to stick out the edge. Well, unless of course you want it to stick out the edge, but I didn't. So I pre-cut and pre-folded so it's ready to go. And then this is just a scrap of paper, and it's, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch. It can be 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and it's a little bit longer than my book. And what I'm going to do is just take this and fold it in half. And again, you can score it, but it doesn't have to be exact. So, if you don't want to use your scoreboard, you certainly don't have to. Fold it in half, and I'm folding pattern side together. If it's two-sided, you don't need to worry about it, but pattern side in, just like that. And then what I'm going to do, where I've folded my pages that I'm going to insert, I'm going to line it up with the fold that I just created in here. So the 2 folds stick together. And then I'll just paper clip them so they stay in place. And then I brought my sewing machine over, and I'll try to angle my camera so that you can see it a little bit. I'll show you how I sew these. Now I use a straight stitch, and I make my stitch just a little bit wider so that it doesn't perforate the book or perforate the page. So my stitches, the length between my stitches is just a little bit wider. And then I sew a straight stitch right down the middle where I've got that crease. Again, 5-hole, 3-hole pamphlet stitch will work just fine. Same idea. Just make sure you're putting this scrap paper, you're sewing it into your signature. All right. And I'm going to back stitch, but you certainly don't have to. I'm going to sew straight down. All right. And I'll move that out of the way. And this is what it looks like. Okay, I'll play with my camera again. This is what it looks like. So I've got it coming out the top and bottom edge, my scrap piece of paper, and then I've got my scrap paper sewn in. I'm going to trim it so that it's flush, just like that. Now I've got this little glue insert basically. So I'm going to put glue right along here, and you can use glue stick if you have a good, super good glue stick, because the paper's so thin it works just fine, but you can also use wet glue. The wet glue tends to get a little bit bulky sometimes because this is such thin paper. You could use cardstock, but I found that I don't really need to. It just creates more bulk, and it's plenty bulky by itself. So I'm going to glue that. And, okay, so here is my booklet that I've, the 4-pocket piece, right? I'm going to flip it over, and in that center crease, I'm going to line this up, right? Here, let's see if I can get it in the right spot. And I'm going to line it up. Now, it should be a little bit, so you see there's a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. It shouldn't touch exactly because I made it a little bit smaller on purpose. That was intentional. And then I just kind of push it down. I smoosh it. And open it back up. Make sure that it's stuck, it's nice and adhered. And that way you have a sewn-in signature without having to, there you go, see if you can see it there, without having to have your stitches come through the back. And it works just like that. And you can use the same technique in any journal or any book, any place that you have room to glue this section down. And I just want to make sure, I need to let it dry. But I would probably clamp that until it's dry because I used glue stick. And that is all there is to it. Decorate the front. Oops, it's upside down. Decorate the front however you choose. 4 tags or 4 pieces inside your pockets, and then you've got a booklet on your back. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the kind comments. And I'll be hopefully back next weekend to share with you the completed Take Flight journal. Happy creating.